Hello. Hello, Amber. Hopefully you can hear me, Chuck. If you can hear me okay, can you just pop a message? Okay, no problem. You go and do your schoolwork. It's far more important. Right, well, it's gone 2 o'clock. So, welcome everybody. Um, this is first for me, live streaming on YouTube and painting with people watching. If you've got any questions, then just put it in the chat. I can see those popping up, so I'll reply to you through audio. Quite happy to just go at whatever pace people want to go at. Objective as today is to do a fairly simple Bob Ross style wet and wet landscape. Top corner you can see my palette. I've got a plate there at the moment because I'm just going to mix some homemade liquid white. So for that I'm just using titanium white. Now I'm using Winsor & Newton Artisan water-soluble oils, which I've found to be considerably easier than Winsor & Newton oils, traditional oils, primarily because they're a lot easier to clean up. Now, for the liquid white, I'm just going approximately a 50-50 mix of titanium white and linseed oil. Now you've got to use the right linseed oil. You've got to use the modified one, water-soluble one. Don't try mixing oil-based products and water-soluble products. That's as bad as trying to mix oil and water itself. It doesn't work. So it's kind of like a whole system where you buy the water-soluble oils, the water-soluble thinner, and the water-soluble linseed oil. You can also get water-soluble stand oil and also fast drying medium. I tend to not really use oil or thinner, only just for producing the liquid white. So mix my liquid white. It's it's just thin white really. I'm just going to put that on. Now the surface I'm using today is just Winsor & Newton oil paper. It's not canvas, it's paper. It very much has an oil canvas consistency to it. With the liquid white, you'll hear Bob say this, thin coat. Don't put enough on, you're in a world of pain because you can't blend. If you put too much on, you're in a world of pain because it'll all your paint will just slip off. Okay, so you just need a thin coat. It needs to be even. So just work it in. Don't use too much. Just work it in. Good tip if you've got a light or the sunlight, just look across the surface of your canvas. You can see if there's any dry spots. You want to know if you've got enough on, just stick your finger on it like that. If you can still see your fingerprint, through the liquid white, then you've got enough. If no white comes off, you haven't got enough, and if you get a big blob, you've got way too much. Okay, so that liquid white, I've got some spare there, but that might come in handy later. So just pop that at the back. Okay, I'm not painting where I normally paint today. I normally paint on the kitchen table of all places, but with this streaming, I've had to just do a bit of a shift around. I'm actually painting in my den today. Now, in terms of a palette, very much try to use a limited palette. I think that it helps you understand how colours are mixed, reduces your choice, but primarily, a big part of becoming a painter is understanding how to mix colour, how to vary colour, how to colour match, and how colours sort of go together. Okay, so on my palette, I've just got 5 colours. I've got titanium white, I've got cad yellow, I've got cad red, cad blue, not cad blue, ultramarine blue, and burnt umber. So this is a palette which is taught by Mark Carter from drawmixpaint.com, and basically he has a colour wheel. I'll just pop up for you, where you've got the primaries, which are blue, red and yellow, and then you've got brown for darker and white for lighter. So if you want green, as the colour wheel shows, you mix blue and yellow. If you want orange, you can either start with brown and get lighter, or you can mix yellow and red. If you want purple, then blue and red. But basically, you can mix pretty much any colour you see in nature from those 5 colours. The only time where you need to supplement those colours, really, is if you're going for a really bright green, like Viridian green for Northern Lights. If you're trying to get a really bright orange, like for a traffic cone, or maybe a really bright purple. Otherwise, you should be able to mix pretty much everything that you see in nature. So what we're going to do today is just a fairly simple, traditional, if you like, Bob Ross inspired landscape. Nothing like too complicated. I'm just going to do a nicely blended sky, a few mountains, trees, water, reflections, that kind of thing. So I'm going to start with a fairly big brush. Actually, going to use the 1-inch brush. There's the one. Well, that's not even 1 inch, probably 3/4, ½ inch. Just a normal painting brush, believe it or not. You know, that you'd paint your house with. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to blend a nice sky. So I want to give the impression of a sunset. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a light yellow. So you don't really want it to be too yellow. You don't want to use it straight out the tube because that's too bright. So just sort of like a pale yellow. And then think about where you want your sun to be. Going off center here. And then just pop it in with a few light strokes. That's all there is to it. Now take a tiny dab of red. Add it to that yellow. And around that yellow, I'm just going to put in, using little crisscross strokes, just like a halo. Come out a little bit and make it look like more of an ellipse. Not much, just a little touch. Okay. From there, I'll just wipe the brush off. I want to go into a little bit of blue. Only a little bit though. Blue's strong colour. Okay, very strong colour. So start on the corners because that's where the darkest piece is going to be. Work your way in. Again, just little strokes. Now, one of the things to watch for with this wet on wet technique, I don't know if you can see that, as I apply my blue, as I put white on the surface, I'm picking up some white off the canvas. So if I continue just to use that blue, it gets more and more diluted down. Sometimes you want that, because it's quite useful as you move around the canvas to get the blue kind of gets lighter. So if you go from the dark to the light areas, that can work quite well. I'm quite happy with those light pieces. But I do want to make the corners a bit darker. If you make the corners darker, it draws your eye naturally into the middle, which is where your focal point should be. Make the corners a little bit darker. There we go. And then pull a little bit of that blue out, put a touch of red in it. Give me like a plum colour. Put that, just suggestion of that in the top. Believe it or not, brown is quite good in the sky. Now I'm just put an update on Facebook because not many people have joined. So either people are keen and for whatever reason can't make it, or far more likely, technology is not working. And it says I'm live on, so I'm just going to Facebook. Put my link on Facebook. Not many people have joined. So either people are keen and for whatever reason can't make it, or far more likely, There we go. So the link I put, I just put the link live on the Facebook page now in the oil painting group. Sorry, admins, if that's not allowed. Hopefully you'll appreciate these are not normal circumstances. I'm not interested in any kind of self-promotion. I'm just trying to provide a little bit of entertainment to the oil painters out there, and also something for me to do. So probably a bit about me, actually. So I'm Neil Cartwright. I'm 48 years old. I worked in IT and as a senior manager for 20 odd years, made redundant back in September last year. Since then I've been doing lots of DIY around the house, taking it easy, having a bit of a break. I was due to go on the Bob Ross landscape course in Orlando, Florida, now actually, but because of the coronavirus, my course got cancelled, flights got cancelled, etc. So I've ended up not doing that. So I'm at home. Everybody in the UK is grounded now, stuck at home, only going out for essentials. So we're all finding different things to do. A lot of the time I do jobs around the house, or DIY, or tidying, or Lego, or watch TV, but also do a bit of painting every now and again. So I thought it would be nice to share this, even if you can't join us live. Then hopefully you'll pick up the recording, and we'll get something from this. If it goes well and people are keen, I'll try and do one, every other day or something. But if there's not much interest, then I'll stick to painting on my own. Okay, right. So far we put the yellow sort of indication of a sun in, bit of orange around it, light blue, darker blue, bit of purple. So now what I've got here is a very soft brush, what I call a blender brush. It's a bit like a blusher, if you do makeup. I only do that at the weekends. But it's very, very soft. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to blend all this together. Now the key thing with blending is go from light to dark, but don't go back into the light once you've been in the dark. Because if you go back into the light once you've been in the dark, you're going to end up with a black or dark smudge in the middle of your light paint, and that's not going to be too much fun. So you really do have to be gentle with this when talking about, just touching the canvas. I think the phrase that Bob used to use was 3 hairs and some air. That gives you an indication. It's barely touching. The objective of this is to blend your colours together, so it gets rid of your brush marks. Okay, you can see how, because we're wet on wet, you can see how the paint is moving around. So you have to be careful, because if you overdo this, very easy to overdo this. Okay. And what you'll do is you just end up with a blue sky. Okay, so once you've blended some of your dark areas, wipe your brush off just with a cloth. I've just got serviettes here. Get that excess paint off, and then just go in again. Now you will obviously get some of the dark colour in the light, some of the light colour in the dark. You can't not do that. But just be careful. You've worked hard to put that light in. Don't obliterate it. What you probably will find here and there, you just get some happy little accidents where something looks really good. Okay. Nice and soft. It's like a really soft, wispy sky. Okay, just going to darken the corners up a little bit. Get a bit more blue, touch more red, mix like a dark plum colour. Up. Also going to just give some indications. Little clouds going on there. Always nice. Just you're looking for contrast in paintings. Just imagine like a sunset where you've got some dark clouds just over the light area. Just put them wherever you like. They look a bit haphazard when you first put them on, but once you've done a few and you know that you can blend them, you get a bit more confidence. Really do have to be careful with things. Such a light touch. Try and concentrate and make sure your clouds are straight. Don't have the clouds all over the place in terms of their shape, but if you've got like a line cloud, you don't want it to appear as though it's going downhill. Quite happy with that. Don't fiddle with it too much, and don't obliterate all your light that you've worked hard to get. Okay, it's not too bad. So it wouldn't be a Bob Ross picture without mounting. So let me find my palette knife. There we go. People are scared of palette knives, but you don't need to be. Okay, so what we're going to do is do like a little mounting range, already covered in paint, which normally is not a problem, but because today I'm in my study, last thing I want to do is get paint everywhere, especially over carpet as well. Not going to end well, is it? Okay, so mounting. I'm going to do probably a range that comes towards us. So the thing with mountains is that the ones in the distance are cooler, smaller, and less detailed. So what you want is fairly light blue, my experience. So more white than blue, just about like a sky blue. But what we're aiming to do is preserve this bright area here. So all I'm going to do is just put in the indication with a small piece of the palette knife. Got tiny roll, and I'm just going to scratch in suggestion. That's all it is. Suggestion of a distant peak. Okay, I don't want any more than that. So then take my colour slightly darker, You want it to be cool, so you want it to be on the blue side. You need some variation. It's going to be slightly nearer than the previous mountain, so it needs to be a little bit more defined and a little bit darker. So I've got that little peak there. I want to preserve this yellow. I'm just going to go in with a sort of thin mountain in front. Okay. Just basic. The important thing here is the edge. That's what you're looking at the moment. The rest of it you can change, but this edge, particularly here, you can see this contrast point between the sort of light lavender colour and the yellow. That's what you want. So this at the back, there's barely anything there, but when you've got the other mountains in, it looks like a distant mountain. So on here, I'm just going to put in indication of another peak. That's it, nothing more. Now here we've got less light in the sky. I'm going to go a little bit darker. Again, just mix up, bit of a roll. Decide where it's going to go. Drop it in. Your mountains don't all have to be like regular. You can put in variation, and if you're not sure what mountains look like, get a picture of the Alps or the Himalayas or something. Just copy it. Roughly copy it, to like every peak. If you're not sure. One of the biggest gotchas actually with mountains is if you've got a sort of analytical brain like me, does models and maths and what have you, is keeping your mountains irregular. A lot of people want to do 3 mountains of the same height. They don't even realise they're doing it. Now here I've got an opportunity because I've got obviously a very small peak, but I've got a bit of a light piece above it, so I'm just going to preserve that and just put in a little bit there. It just hooks up to that ridge. Okay, so again, only really concerned about that edge. Now the next step is to pull those mountains out. So to do that, you have to decide which ones are in front of which is usually straightforward. Especially in this case where you've got like a run of a mountain range, because obviously this one is the furthest back, then this one, then this one, then this one. But you could, if you wanted to, have this one and this one, then this one at the front, and then that one at the back. You could have painted that a bit smaller and put that one at the back. It doesn't really matter. So all I'm going to do with this is just pull out the paint. All we're doing, we're just pulling out the paint. Just smooth it out a bit. See anything that you like and it looks like a ridge, a bit of a bump or whatever, then leave it. No rules here. Just pulling this out a little bit. The other thing you need to think about with mountains, because they're big, is the light. Usually you have a shadow side and a light side. Now in our picture here, the light's kind of behind over here. So the sun was barely shining this way. A lot of this would be in shadow, so this is kind of our dark colour already. The light side is the other side, so you don't really have to worry too much about that. Now what you can do, just pick yourself up some paint, dark roll, and then just barely kiss it across the surface. I haven't got enough there. Just get a bit of blue and red. Mix that together. Quite red. Don't really need to overmix it because the marbling effect will help with this. So I'm just going to just take your knife, roll of paint, touch your canvas and just drag it down. Just gives indication of little crevices and things going on. Don't do the whole thing. Don't obliterate everything you've done before. Indicate some light and shade. Okay. So it just gives a bit more depth to it, really. From time to time, you just need to sort of step back, have a look, see where you need to just tweak it a little bit. You have to balance that with not overworking it. It's a challenge. Fairly happy with that. So next thing is just to blend your bottom of the mountains so they're not a hard edge. Okay, so for this, need to clean off my trusty brush. Remember that all this is still wet. This will be wet for hours. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is just do some tapping. Just create some mist. Bottom of the mountains. The reason that this works is picking up the dark colour from the above and the light colour from below. It just gives you a little bit of a mix. Okay, so that's that. So next thing, as we work towards the foreground, we'll put in some pine trees. Now, you want to go slightly darker, to give you that perception of depth. You're not sure about a colour, by the way. Mix it and just give it a little go. So here, I'm just tapping, just gently tapping. Think about this as like a bank, like a little forest of trees. We're just tapping them in. See how it's like a wedge shape. Don't worry too much about the bottom. Again, we're just concentrating on this top edge. Leave a light area. Okay, that's why we put that mist in. So what we're doing is we're going dark, the mountains, into the light mist, and then we're going slightly darker again, and it's that dark to light to dark that gives you that little bit of depth. Okay. Now you might be thinking, and to be honest, I'm not surprised if you're not thinking, that doesn't look much like a line of trees. But that's just the basis of it. So the next step is to give the indication of some pine trees. And all you do is very gently on the edge, just pull up. Like that. Just gently pull them up. Obviously not too far, because you don't want like 100-foot pine trees, but the idea is just to get that little indication. Okay. Now again, wipe your brush so you haven't got much paint on it. We'll do another one. So first thing, mist again. And yes, the mist is darker. Not by much, but it is a little bit darker. The idea is that you're just blending. Create a little bit of a light spot. And then, once again, just darken your colour. I'm going to go for a little bit of blue, red. I have a bit of a weakness for the sort of the plum colour, blue and red, the deep plum colour. We're not quite at that colour yet because we might need that when we get a little bit closer. Again, just test it. Yeah, that's darker. So again, keep that, preserve that light area. Be afraid to go back and reload your brush because you're picking up white paint all the time. And don't make this too regular. You're not, painting soldiers in a queue. Okay. So again, just got a little bank, and just as before, just pull up. Nice. And we need one on the other side. What I want to do is sort of suggest there's water in between. So I just want a little bank that comes down the other side. I'm going to just vary the colour slightly. I'll probably go just a bit more blue. Just pop in a bank that side. Gently. One thing that painting has taught me is to become a lot more gentle than I used to be. You can't be heavy-handed when it comes to this stuff. If you are, then very quickly you obliterate what you've done. So I'm just adding a bit more blue to my to the previous colour. Touch of red as well. Always go for red, get that plum. And then I'm just going to put in a bit of a darker piece here. Again, just little indications of trees. But see how you got that nice gap in between. Okay. And for me, I can see like a little river already running through there, which will become a pool. Okay. So what we're going to do now is get a bit more. I'm going to save this little bit here for water and reflections, but I think we've got room just to get in a little bank here. So again, you want to go a little bit darker. So I'm going with my base color. I'm going more blue, more red. Okay, seems to be a very sort of bluey, purpley picture. So stick with that. What I'm going to do now is just, quite like that there, is just put in indication of some little bushes. There we go. And you can, again, you can just very gently pull up little twigs and what have you. But once again, do not obliterate that white space. Working hard to preserve. Okay, and then in the bottom here, I want to go pretty dark. So I'm just going to get a bit of blue and a bit of umber and mix those. It's going to get me quite a dark colour. But that, if you think about it, we're way away from the light. We're underneath a hedgerow. Just going to put in, it's almost like a grey, just down at the base. And again, just bring it up and down so you've got some variation. Okay. So, fun bit now. Shadow time. Well, water in shadow time. Okay. Now, people struggle with reflections. They shouldn't do because they're fairly straightforward. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put the water in. So for that, I'm going for a fairly light blue. So that's just ultramarine and a bit of titanium white. Okay, and what we're going to do is just pop that water in gently. It's still wet. Just run it all the way across. Now don't start in the middle. Start in the middle like that. You're going to get this funny edge. You don't want that because that's a mess. Okay, so just go straight across where your water is. Your objective here is just to put some different coloured lines in. You're not trying to obliterate your white. You want a mix of the colour you're using and the white. Okay, and then once you put your base sort of light blue in, just go a little bit darker. Then working from the outside in, just again, just a bit more on the edges. It's the same principle as with the sky, where you want the edges to be a bit darker. You want the water to be a bit darker. Draws the eye in. Okay, so that's the base of the water. And what you can see is we've got a natural bank here. We've got a natural bank there. Should probably do is accentuate that bank by just putting in a little bit of darker colour under there. Okay. Now my favourite bit, shadows. Now all you need for the shadows is clean your brush with a cloth or serviette so it's dry. Don't want any paint on there. Okay. And all we do, put our brush in a 90-degree angle to the, well, put it horizontal. Put it just on the bottom of the dark paint and pull down. So what that does is two things. It lifts your bank slightly because you're obviously taking paint and pulling it down. But it's also doing these downward strokes in the water. You can vary the height of them, not all uniform. Just pull them down. Okay. Wipe your brush. Do not forget that bit. So it's dry again. And now go across very gently. Trying just to touch it without touching it. And you only want to do it once or twice. If you feel that an area is not showing its shadows that well, just have another go. Okay. Then what you've got there is you've naturally got some. You've just got some. Basically, you produce the reflections by pulling the colour that you've used in the trees down into the water, and then that motion down and then across smooths it all out. Gives you very nice reflections. Okay. Just notice I've got this is a bit harsh in here. Just need to just blend that. Blend that through. There we go. Okay. Then having done that, I'll take some of my dark colour, the one that I used on the edges here. I'll just put the odd mark in. Again, you just want to drag your paint flat, cut across it to produce a roll, tiny roll, and then kind of just scratch it in. Just a little bit, not too much. And say you make a big gaff. Let's do one here and go, oh dear. And all you need to do is just gently blend it out. Okay, you won't get rid of it completely, but it'll turn it into just what looks like a motion in the water. Okay. Next thing, waterline. So if it's like an icy cold scene, you just use white. Keeping in theme with my blue purpley picture, I'm just going to add a touch, only a touch of blue to mine. Give me like a light blue, so it'll be a whitish blue. Just a little. Okay. So you're looking for that piece between where the land ends and where the reflections start. So you've got a little roll of paint, and you're just going to cut. All you're looking for is like the ripples where the water just butts up. Just cut it and move on. Doesn't need much. Very effective. If you want, you can just put the odd one in your water just to show that it's not, super calm. Okay. That's quite nice in itself, but it's not amazing. I thought it'd be fun to stick a few bigger trees in. So what I think I'm going to do is, there's not a lot going on here, so I'm going to put some big trees in there, but I'm just going to put a few smaller fir trees in over there. So I'll just get myself a brush for that. So with a tree, fir tree, basically you're going to paint it dark and highlight it light. So can't have the light without the dark. So let's just pick somewhere to put a tree. Lock it in. Not finished yet. Lock it in. Now all I'm doing for the tree is just little strokes down. I'll do another one really slow in a minute. Not really dark enough. Go a bit darker. A bit of umber in my blue. Don't worry too much about the point. I've got a little cheat for that. I'll show you in a minute. Needless to say, these fir trees get bigger as they go down. Okay. People tend to paint these in odd numbers. For some reason, human beings like to see odd numbers of things rather than even numbers. So, nobody's saying you have to paint an odd number. Floats your boat, really. Well, it's turned out bigger than I expected, but doesn't matter. Vary the colour. Yeah, go a bit more blue on one or a bit more brown on another one. Doesn't really matter. But the variation would be just improves your, your depth within your picture. Made you look like you think about it. You thought about it carefully. Of course we did. Just blocking in really where these blocking in there where these trees are going to live. And I will just take a minute just to sit back and have a look. I can already tell that 4 in a row there looks a bit odd. So put one in here. Of course you can put little ones in at the back. Indications of other things going on. Just whatever really. Fiddle with that all day. Okay, so to get good points on your tree, just push your palette knife through the colour you're using and then just strike it up. All you're doing is you're effectively creating a coloured scratch. Gives you a nice little point. Now the astute people will have noticed that that means now I've got trees and no reflections. So need to fix that. The reflections are quite easy. You just roughly paint that tree the other way around. Block those trees in the other way around. And then again, with your dry, bigger brush, gently go across to create the shadows. Possible through doing that you've disturbed your water lines. You might have to put that back in. Okay, so those are really just to balance what's coming on the other side, which I think we need a bigger tree. So you might have noticed that Bob usually does his trees with a fan brush, and I didn't do mine with a fan brush. And that's purely because the trees weren't really big enough to warrant a fan brush. But I'm thinking about putting like some monsters in here. So going to mix a pretty dark colour. Don't be paint shy. Get plenty. This is a mix of ultramarine blue and umber, which will give you a blackish colour. It's not as black as the black that comes out the tube, but then you don't find that black in nature. Anyway, I've used this brush for a while and it's molting. Crazy. Pull that back and forward through the paint because you want lots of paint. Okay. Here comes the bravery test. So, where are we going to go? Here. I'm just using the corner. Getting gradually wider as I go down. Run out of blue paint. They're quite paint hungry, these trees. Don't ever be tempted to try and skimp on paint, by the way. I know, nobody likes leaving paint on the palette. It's wasted money. If you try and paint these trees without enough paint, just don't come out. Nice thing about a fan brush is it does all the hard work for you. All those little bristles and indents. And I'm going to vary my blue with a bit more brown and put in another one a bit lower. What I'm doing there is pulling the trunk down, reloading, especially making sure the edges are loaded because that's what I'm painting with. And then we're just going to touch that tree in. But leave gaps. Things work because you've got the light gaps. This one's a bit darker, so I'm going to put him in front. I think just for fun, we'll have a third one. At the moment, these trees aren't that well defined, really. Okay, so there's a couple of things we need to do. One, get a roll of paint in the colour you've just been using and put the tips in. And you use the same technique a bit further down to just give indications of the trunk. Fir trees have one central trunk. You don't tend to see their branches. What you're trying to do is indicate. You don't have to draw them in. What you can do is, if you want to just indicate something going on there, and then come back with my fan brush and just smooch them in. And then what I'm going to do is probably just put a little something in this corner. I'm going to go really dark in this corner. Didn't realise this picture was going to be so blue-black orientated when I started it, but then I didn't really know what I was doing, so you know. Just like the indication, really, of a little bank. Grasses. What have you going on? Indication of a trunk or two on these. So we're getting near done now. Just some highlights to go. I think I'm going to do much over this side. I'm just going to scratch in a few grasses. Careful not to overdo this. It's quite easy just to get a bit carried away. You can do that, like, you know, to give the indication of a little old tree or something here and there. Don't overdo it. And then in terms of highlights, that bit there is just bothering me. There. Yeah, that's looking all right. So the last thing we want to do is just put a few highlights on those trees in the foreground. So I didn't really intend this picture to turn out like a bit of a snowscape, but sometimes you just have to go with it. I need to find another brush. What I'm going to do now is just load that fan brush up with my liquid white. Why am I using liquid white? Well, think about it. We've already got in some places 3 paint layers, all wet. So if you look down in this bottom corner, you've got the original white at the bottom. You've got some of the blue from the water, some of the blue from the tree, some of the darker tree. It's going to be getting quite thick, and so in some cases, getting your paint to stick will be quite difficult. So thinner paint, by thinner in this case, I just mean paint just diluted down with a bit of linseed oil. Should stick. So I'm going to put this on as white, but I'm going to be really gentle with it because I want to give kind of the indication of some hanging snow. Go back and reload a lot because you're going to pull that dark paint off. Very quickly your white isn't white anymore. Touch these branches just to give them a bit of a highlight. Yeah. Okay. Little sit back for a minute or two. Have a look at that. I'm pleased with those trees in the foreground on the right hand side, but the trees at the back look a little blobby. I'm just going to fix that. Move those blobs out a bit. To lack a bit of definition, this piece at the bottom here. So I'm just going to go a bit darker. There's a bank there. Just run that out there. There's a few sticks and twigs. Reverse paint those. Been on about an hour. Don't want to go on for too long. Again, just pull those shadows down. Those reflections down, sorry. Just go lightly across. And then repair the damage. Namely, the water line back in. Just lost the detail on the front here. Pull those up again. Do a few here as well, just to show there's something going on. A couple of lighter ones. And we'll call that undone, I think. So I've got this canvas taped off, so I've actually got a quarter of an inch, centimetre, whatever, around the outside. So I won't sign it on the canvas. What I'll do is I'll take the tape off, and then I'll sign it down at the bottom corner. I find that's a bit neater. But just to show you how versatile this medium is, obviously I painted that sky, what was it now, nearly an hour ago. And if there's still a bit you don't like, I've just noticed, and you probably can't see it on the camera, but there's a little bit here which is just annoying me. And I can still move that around. So if I decided that it's not light enough, it's too dark, I mean, obviously going back into these areas is very difficult because they're done. But I hope you can see that that's very versatile. A bit worried that these trees all look like they're in a line. Might need to fix that. See, I'm fiddling now. This is where I need my wife to tell me not to fiddle. Pardon the expression. I think what we can do is just break that up by sticking in a much bigger tree. Maybe just suggestion of something going on down here. Okay. I hope you've enjoyed that, whether you watched it live or whether you've watched it playback. If there's anything in particular you want me to paint or any particular questions, feel free to come along to the next stream. I'll do my best to answer. I'll sign off. Thanks a lot.